Where do you stand on whether the Board of Education should voluntarily recognize CPAA as the bargaining agent for principals and assistant principals?
Like I think that that recognition has to begin now, in recognizing workers and workers' ability and responsibility to be able to collectively not only organize and bargain, but to be recognized. That's something that should happen immediately.
Handout. The average hourly wage for a teacher with 4 more years of experience is $69, while the average hourly wage for an assistant principal supervising that teacher is $59. This has presented a crisis in that we can't get our best teachers to join the school leadership pipeline by becoming assistant principals because they don't want to take the pay cut. I actually had a principal tell me, I have a teacher who is exquisitely prepared for leadership. Principal told me that, but she won't take the pay cut. And so the question.
Will you strengthen the principal pipeline by supporting a provision that the average hourly pay rate of an assistant principal must be higher than the average hourly pay rate of a teacher with 4 or more years of experience and a corresponding increase for principals?
Absolutely, we have to do this as responsibilities grow, as well as opportunities grow. We want to make sure that we're incentivizing that. Look, this is still a profession that is overwhelmingly made up of women. I mean, we know that. I believe that the education force is roughly 80% women. And so when we talk about pay equity and making sure that we are keeping up with not just cost of living, but the skill set, the responsibility that comes with being in leadership, that certainly should be reflected in someone's W 2.
And this question comes directly from one of our Latino members. I would like to know how we can prioritize a pipeline for Latino administrators since 47% of our students are Latinos, but less than 20% of our administrators are Latinos.
Well, I think it goes back to making sure that one, there's real pay equity, but two, when Latino and Latinx teachers come into the profession, do they see a real pathway to leadership? A Latinx teaching force comes into teaching with all of the same desires of any other teacher, but do they come in from day one seeing themselves as a leader and a pathway to leadership, right? And so, what I'm prepared to do as mayor is to make sure that the pathway for leadership is something that we are promoting throughout someone's tenure. And then, if I could, it, I know this is about administrative leadership, but this is also a larger dynamic about making sure that math coaches, reading coaches, other forms and pathways to leadership that can ultimately prepare someone to run a school or to assist in that. We also have to make sure that we are developing their entire track of leadership, and especially individuals who love particular disciplines like reading and math. These are opportunities that can actually help grow the pathway to administrative leadership.
Our last question, and it's around this idea of, we support the police or what works for public safety. So we developed a question that we think will get to the heart of it rather than the talking points and the hashtags. And Alex has that question.
What is the primary difference between cities and neighborhoods that are safe and those that are not? And how will your public safety strategy reflect your answer to that question?
Mm, yeah, thank you. So, for the people who do not know, I have three children that are Chicago Public School students, a third, a fifth grader, and a freshman. And we live on the west side of Chicago. We love the west side of Chicago. We live in Austin. It's a beautiful community. But we don't attend neighborhood schools in Austin, primarily because our children they play instruments, and there aren't schools on the west side that offer orchestra. And I'm also lifting that up is because the disinvestment that has occurred in neighborhoods like Austin or McKinley Park or Garfield Park or Morgan Park, wherever you live, there's just disinvestment. And so as a result of that, we have real safety issues, right? Public safety is top of mind. And in fact, Austin is one of the most violent neighborhoods in the entire city. And we live through it every single day. And so what I've said repeatedly is that the safest cities in America, they all have one thing in common. And what they have in common, they invest in people. Under my administration, that's what's going to be top of mind every single day. How do we invest in people's lives? Because ultimately, we want to prevent violence from happening. And so I know there's a lot of focus on on public safety, but our ultimate goal is to prevent harm from happening. And so that's why my public safety plan gets at the root causes, but the immediate crisis. That means we need more detectives. We have to hire more detectives and have them properly trained because we're not solving crime in Chicago. And because we're not solving crime in the city of Chicago, it's caused not just fear, but it has incentivized more crime. It's why I'm also committed to making sure that we are implementing and spending constitutional. We have to have constitutional policing, right? And so we're investing in the consent decree. The consent decree is purpose to not only bring accountability to law enforcement, but to support law enforcement, where more police officers actually need mental health services, just like everybody else. But it also requires us to make sure that we are hiring young people and giving them purpose. That's why we get into education for young people to find their purpose. When young people find their purpose, they're not idle, right? And so I'm committed as mayor of the city of Chicago to doubling the number of young people that we hire, not just for summer positions, but for year-round positions. The data has proven there's a direct correlation between youth employment and violence reduction. Again, this also requires us to reopen the mental health centers, to have mobile health to have mobile healthcare units so that they can be available in the event of crises. So this is a comprehensive plan where we invest in solving crime, making sure that we're investing in immediately hiring young people that reduces and prevents violence from happening, but building towards a long-term strategy around economic development and reopening our mental health centers so that everyone has access to a quality of life. And so I'm very much committed to it. It's top of mind, and we can build a better, stronger, safer Chicago together. I actually believe it's a remarkable opportunity for us to do something where we can elect an educator, because we're all educators, to the fifth floor. And not just electing an educator, but someone who has the values of the city of Chicago, someone who has incredible incentive for the city of Chicago to work. I'll arguably be the first mayor who relies upon all of public accommodations, from transportation to our healthcare system here, to our education system here, right? These are all of the things that we have fought for. These are the things that we have educated our communities around. How to make sure that we're investing in the very ideas and not just concepts, but the systems that provide quality support and care for people. It would be a unique opportunity for us to do something that Dr. King said, that if we can figure it out politically in the city of Chicago, we can do it anywhere in the world. And those were his words. And of course, we know he said those words when he came to Chicago and laid his head on the west side of Chicago. So we do claim Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as a West Sider. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's April 4th, Election Day, where we can actually send a message to the rest of the country, not just commemorating his life and thinking about his assassination, but really thinking about the resurrection of the city of Chicago and doing it through our public education system.